Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 232 of the SoxProspects.com podcast. We're the web's number one source for information on the Boston Red Sox farm system from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between. Thank you for listening. My name is Chris Hatfield. I'm the executive editor of Sox Prospects, and I'm joined, as always, by our director of scouting and all-star at Red Light, Green Light, Ian Kundle. Ian, welcome to the show. I'm sorry, I started watching Squid Game.
I have not started it yet, but
I love it. I think it's really good. I don't know what that says about me, but I think it's great. It made me crave bibimbap the other day. But anyways, enough about Korean.
You don't want to
Netflix
talk about
shows.
Korean food?
Dude, don't even get me started.
Korean food's very good.
Love
very
Korean
good
food. Great start. It's November 3rd. There is no more baseball.
Sad day.
The World Series.
Well, there's no more Major League Baseball. Let's be honest.
That's a good point.
There's a lot of fall and winter league ball still to go.
And
but
baseball is it's always there for us when we need it.
Well, until it isn't, which could happen in a month. But let's keep going.
Yeah, as long as you can go play a catch in the backyard, it's there for us. But at any rate, the Red Sox lost to the Houston Astros in the ALCS. We needed a week to process, to come back down, to regain our composure.
I thought you were going to say regain power, because that's really why we didn't record last week.
That's true too. I forgot about that. Yeah, you got whacked.
Yeah.
How long were you without power?
Well, not really. Wasn't, because we have a generator, but we had no internet for like 3 days. So,
oof, first world problems.
Yeah,
first world problems.
But yeah, that was a doozy. I hope everyone,
I hope everyone's
listeners
good.
are safe and your house wasn't too badly damaged.
Exactly. Yeah, co-sign on that. Hope you're all doing good, because we likely have a high concentration of listeners up in New England.
Yeah, and South Shore, Cape Cod area, we got crushed. So yeah, that was an interesting one.
Shout out to our folks up there. Hope everyone's good. That said, a lot of offseason happening already. Day after the season ended, so but the Major League free agents were officially declared today.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about the offseason calendar. We're going to talk about what happens next. We're going to preview the next week or two of the offseason, what happens, what goes on, what we think might happen.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about looking back on our predictions that we did at the beginning of the year. Ian, you did a lot better than me. We'll say that.
I mean, there's a reason one of us is considered the talent.
Wow.
Just kidding.
Wow.
But not really.
He's not. No, he's not. It's a point of contention. But yeah, we'll talk about those predictions, how they turn out, why were we right, why were we wrong. Lots of other stuff, and of course, as always, your emails, and of course, an update on the fall and winter leagues as well. So, without any further ado, Ian, let's first tell the folks how they can support the show. You can support us by rating and reviewing on Apple Podcasts. That's always appreciated. You can also support us on patreon.com/SoxProspects. Pledge a certain amount per episode and get some neat perks. You get access to, for example, to exclusive rankings information, access to the Patreon game updates. We're always kind of trying to figure out new things to put on there. And of course, when we reach our next goal per episode, I think we set it at $350 per episode, Ian and I will watch the Bad News Bears and do a podcast scouting the players in the Bad News Bears. So that'll be fun. So if you hop on there, support, we'll get to that point. We'll but we'll get to do that episode exclusive for our patrons. So help us reach that goal. And of course, we want to talk about what you want to hear about. So send us your emails at podcast@soxprospects.com. We've got a few pretty good ones for this episode, Ian. So we'll get to those at the end. But let's start
the end of the Red Sox season.
Yeah. What happened? Put it this way. I mean, it for me, and I don't know what you think. I think it's just as simple as the bats went quiet at the wrong time.
I mean, the starting pitching was pretty good those last couple of games, but the bats went quiet, and then the bullpen kind of just fell apart multiple times. Mm-hmm. They did get the umpiring was not great. I mean, I think we can say that. But that's not why they lost. I mean, the Astros were a more talented team. The Astros have a deeper lineup, and their pitching held together a little better later on in the series.
They did.
And yeah, I mean, that's kind of, that's baseball for you. Bats go hot and cold. And I think though that as a whole, I kind of talked about it after they're eliminated, that it was still a very positive season for the Red Sox,
No
just
question.
organization wide. You had some really good developments on the farm system. You had a strong draft. And then you had the major league team greatly exceeding expectations with, some big players taking big steps forward. Like guys like Garrett Whitlock had an excellent year. Tanner Houck showed his potential in certain roles. Eovaldi showed that he can be a true, probably a number 2 starter. Chris Sale came back and had a good start to end his season. Granted, it was a little shaky before that, but
Right.
hopefully he can build off of that. On the offensive side of things, obviously Devers and Bogarts were really good. Schwarber was interesting, so we'll talk about him a little later. We'll see what happens there. Kike Hernandez turned into the best player in baseball for a couple weeks. That was fun. But still established himself as, a solid everyday player, which is at the contract they have him is a great deal. But I also think though that, heading into the offseason, there's a lot of questions, and it's going to be very interesting to see what the Red Sox do, because I think there are kind of like 2 paths they can go down. And one of them is dependent on them spending a lot of money, and one of them is kind of keeping more of the status quo and building, playing the long-term game. And I'm fascinated to see what Chaim Bloom and co have in store, and hopefully we get to see it. But, we'll have to see on that, obviously, too.
One thing that I complained about during the Dave Dombrowski era, Ian, was the lack of creativity in building the team. Granted, he inherited a team where he didn't need a ton of it at that point in time, but the reason why I thought moving on from him at the time they did was that it was at a point where they were going to need creativity to transition to the next core of the Boston Red Sox that was going to be a winning team. We're going to see how creative Chaim Bloom can be this offseason. Chaim Bloom and co, the entire front office. They have a lot of really interesting questions that I think, some of the more interesting ones I think maybe we'll get into next episode. Some of them we'll get into this episode, but what do you do with Xander Bogaerts? What do you do with Rafael Devers? What do you do with Kyle Schwarber and JD Martinez? What do you do in the pitching front? Is it as easy as going out? Look, in the past, it was just kind of the Red Sox are going to sign one of the big shortstops and they're going to stick him at second. That's what would have happened because money was no object, right? We'll see if they do that this offseason, but it might not be that simple. It definitely isn't that simple. You got to talk to Bogarts, et cetera. So we're going to see just how creative this front office can be going forward. I guess maybe recapping really quick the transactions since the last episode, Ian. On the player front, the Red Sox designated Franchi Cordero for assignment. I don't think that was after our last episode, right?
I think so. And then they gave him the way they did it, though, was an example of that creativity because they basically made it so it was no team was going to claim him, which was genius.
They did a poison pill, which is the same thing.
It?
Yeah, it's the same thing they did last year with Jairo Munoz, Ryan Weber, and Cesar Puello, where they signed him. They signed Franchi Cordero to a 1-year, essentially extension for next year. 1-year contract. What was it? 850K. So sign up for 1 year, 850K contract, which granted, I don't know how much of a poison pill it was because this year he made like 825. So I don't know if it was really as much of a poison pill so much as it was locking in what he would make in the majors next year.
Yeah, and I think that's it. It's just teams are hesitant to give out those kind of like priority minor league deals this early in the offseason, I think. And no one's going to claim him knowing that he wouldn't be making less.
Yeah. And I mean, who knows what he makes in the minors, right? Because he's got an option remaining, I think. I mean, at least he's got an option remaining, I think. So designate him for assignment. He cleared and he's sticking around because he had already resigned, because we thought when he got designated for assignment, and I guess when he got designated for assignment, he hadn't been signed yet. They signed him before he was outrighted, but he would have been a minor league free agent, never mind a major league free agent. If he wasn't on the 40-man, he would have become a free agent. So that keeps him in the organization for next year. Cool. They get to see whether or not he can figure it out. And he'll be there for depth if they need him. And if he's absolutely raking again in AAA, maybe they give him another shot, or maybe they move him to a team that wants to give him a shot. just savvy moves on the margins is something that Heim Bloom and co have done very well since Bloom has taken over. That was not something that the Dombrowski regime did well. So good move there. The other moves have been on the coaching staff. Third base coach, or no, first base coach,
First
Tom
base
Goodwin,
coach.
Not returning. I will
Yeah.
leave it at that. I have the reasons I think he's not, and I will leave it at that.
I think the other one's way more interesting.
Yeah, the Red Sox invited everyone else back, but hitting coach Tim Hires left, declined the opportunity to come back. Ian, I'm not inclined to think it's a money thing.
No, it seems like he just wanted a new role.
It's weird.
He just didn't want to. It seems like he wants to be more of like a hitting coordinator, like working like with all levels, kind of, or
maybe.
I don't know. It's strange because I thought he did a really good job this year.
He's done a good job since they promoted him.
He's been a very, a big voice and working with those hitters and developing the kind of the approach and everything that led to breakouts for some guys this year. So I don't know. It's a big loss. They obviously, the assistant hitting coach, whose name escapes me right now, begins with an S.
Peter Fatsi.
F. Yep. Thank you.
Peter Fatsi.
He's coming back, and you would assume that he just gets promoted to be a full time. But
he is. Yeah. They were already. Alex Spear reported they were planning on promoting Fatsi to be a co-hitting coach with Hires.
Yeah. So
but he also said that the two of them had a very good working relationship. That wouldn't have been the reason why Hires left.
It's just it's a little weird. I don't know. I'm confused by it, and maybe we'll find out more information later in the offseason. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up, though.
See what kind of job he takes. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And he's a guy that the team was high on. I mean, he started. Did he start as a scout? I think he started as a scout.
Yeah, he was a scout because remember he was Austin Meadows hitting instructor that year when it was like the Austin Meadows and Clint Frazier draft, and they took Trey Ball, and everyone wanted one of those two.
Yep, and he wound up becoming a minor league hitting coach or hitting coordinator, and then got promoted really fast to the major leagues.
Yeah,
they clearly liked his work.
I have a feeling, by the way, I don't know if we want to go briefly circle back to first base. I don't know, but I wonder if Darren Fenster becomes the first base coach, because he's obviously someone, he's been their roving like defensive instructor, but he does a lot of base running stuff, good defensive coach and outfield coach too, which is what I think Goodwin worked with the outfielders a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
He checks a lot of boxes for what I think they need in that role. And so he's the name that came to mind if they decide to go internal with that spot to me. That was the one that came up to me.
That's a good call. I was
just thought I'd put it on the record in case it actually happens, so I can take credit for.
True. The other thing I was thinking in terms of hitting coach, I'm wondering the Red Sox have already said, I don't know if we talked about it did we talk about on the podcast, the report that Billy McMillan and Bruce Crabb are not coming back to Worcester?
No, we didn't.
Talked about that.
No.
So the Red Sox have said they're not bringing back Billy McMillan, the manager in Worcester, and Bruce Crabb, who was like
he's been there forever.
He was just a coach, but he was
like he was an assistant coach. I guess I don't know what
coach, but he was, he worked with the infielders. He's been working a ton with Jeter Downs.
Yeah.
But he
was always hitting fungos.
Yeah. They are bringing back Paul Abbott, the pitching coach,
yeah,
and Rich Gedman, the hitting coach.
Mm-hmm.
My thought went to whether they would promote Gedman to the majors as an assistant hitting coach.
Could be. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see because they haven't announced a new Worcester manager yet, have they?
No, they generally do those all at once.
Yeah, so I would assume. Point, I think. So who's the Double-A manager right now? It's Iggy. No,
what's that?
No, Corey Wimberly is at Double-A.
Corey Wimberly, yeah.
I don't think
Wimberly yet.
He just got it because this was his first year at Double-A. Then High A is Iggy Suarez.
I mean, what I was wondering is if Heim wanted to bring people in from the Rays organization.
I could see it because that's the other thing we should mention is the window is up. The non-compete, 2-year stretch where they can only bring over a certain number of people is over. So if they wanted to, the floodgates could open with some people coming from that organization up to Boston.
Yeah, and to be fair though, I wouldn't expect Bloom to bring over 6 lieutenants.
No.
It would be 1 or 2 guys who are getting promotions who he really likes, or or
it could even be something someone who was an intern or a low-level staffer who he really liked or worked with and wanted to put in a more prominent role, something like that.
Right. So So we'll see what winds up happening there. I could definitely see the AAA manager being someone from the Rays minor league
Yeah.
coaching staffs.
I also could see though, like that's another job if they wanted to get like Fenster back in the managing game. Maybe
Yeah.
he's in consideration for that, or because they have some other guys who I wonder if like Reed Greganani, maybe I wonder if they're trying to put him into position to become a future manager at some point. Like maybe he moves,
Maybe.
you move one of the guys up from the lower levels, he takes that job, something like that. Because they have they've done a really good job, I think, of stocking the organization with young, really smart baseball minds. And I think there are some guys like that who might be in line for promotions heading into next season.
True. I could see it. The other front office note that we should mention, actually, Ian, is the kind of running joke on baseball Twitter for the past week now, Ian, has been that no one wants the Mets general manager job.
Are we sure that they just don't want anyone to have it? Like, because it's funny. Like, I don't
know.
Like have they officially like interviewed anyone?
No, because people keep taking their names out of consideration.
But like Brian Sabian took his name out without even being like asked to be in
it. Well, the problem is that so they were letting Zach Scott go because of the DUI that he got. They released a list of people they wanted to talk to that included like Theo Epstein,
but
and Brian Sabian, and it's like, why would you leak this list?
It makes no sense.
Because now they all need to publicly say they're not interested.
And Theo was never taking that job.
No,
like, that wasn't.
No, Theo Epstein is. You know what? Theo Epstein is being groomed to be the next commissioner of baseball.
Probably,
strong belief.
I think the only way he comes back to a team is if he's getting an ownership stake, and he's not getting an ownership stake from Steve Cohen. So
no,
that was never going to happen.
Of course not. And so, but apparently
the Sabian one was hilarious though. He was like, "I don't have interest because they never contacted me," or something. It was something I can't remember.
It was
the
very
wording.
like,
It was very
no,
funny.
this is not a thing.
Yeah.
The thing. So they've been turned down. They were going to talk to Stearns, or wanted to talk to Stearns
for Milwaukee. Yeah, David Stearns. Yeah, and Billy Beane said no.
Billy Beane said no. The Stearns, Milwaukee denied them permission,
which makes sense. I mean, he's their GM,
and because it was a lateral move. Like it wasn't a promotion.
Well, the thing is too, I bet if they wanted to like interview him for the Chaim Bloom role, like chief baseball officer or executive vice president or whatever, they would have just promoted him anyway. Like they were never going to let him go because he's one of the younger, really highly thought of general managers.
Well, then I think they tried to talk to the guy underneath Stearns, and like either that guy said he wasn't interested or the Brewers said no to that too.
Yeah. And then apparently they're interested in the guy from the Orioles who's with the Astros, Sig Megdal, but maybe no one's officially requested permission to speak to them. And then coming back to the Red Sox.
The Red Sox, they have apparently received permission, even though apparently there's an embargo on the Mets taking Red Sox front office people right now because of Scott going over. But they've received permission to interview Raquel Ferreira for their GM position.
I hope she gets it. I mean, it'd be a great job for her. Like, and I do wonder at some point the Red Sox are going to have to lose some of their lieutenants. Like, you know what I mean? Like
the group of four. Well, they had
Brian
the group
O'Halloran,
of five.
Raquel Ferreira, Eddie Romero, and Ben Crockett. Like, from that group, am I missing someone? Did I forget?
Well, no, they had the group. It was Romero, O'Halloran, Ferreira, and Zach Scott.
And Scott left.
Scott got hired by the Mets when Porter, got the GM job, lost it. Scott got promoted. He lost it. O'Halloran got promoted to GM with the Red Sox, so he would have to get like a P-Bops position somewhere to leave. Probably,
but they just that's too many. Like that's so many big like smart baseball people that could run their own team. So I just wouldn't be surprised. Like
Crockett moving up. You've got a VP in Mike Rickard, Gus Quattlebaum. I mean, they've got all kinds of people.
So like they just have a lot of
the team forever.
They have a lot of men and women that deserve a chance to run their own franchise. And, I would love to see what Raquel Ferreira could do. We've heard, I think we both have heard nothing but glowing things about her and the impact she has on the organization. And
for sure,
I think, it would be a very interesting, that'd be a big first job, but I think it would be a lot of fun, kind of seeing what she can do over there.
Yeah. And I think part of it though is, aren't they hiring a president too? Like I think that's
Sandy Alderson, the president too, or something.
That's the thing is it's like the Alderson. That maybe that's what it is that like, you're getting the GM job, but you're getting the GM job to work under Alderson, who is probably going to have the last word on everything. So,
it's just a weird situation. It's also, I mean, Steve Cohen.
It's very Mets.
it's Steve Cohen too, is like, do you want your, like, I don't know if you saw this. Apparently one of his tweets is being used in a lawsuit by like minor league players.
Yes.
Because he said like the quiet part out loud about the draft suppressing salaries.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
That's
so
true. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, is Garrett Brocious doing that one?
I don't know, but I'm sure like, if you're a GM or person who's running baseball ops, the last thing you want is your owner tweeting about like your team every day or tweeting about your players or, decisions you make. So yeah.
Cohen needs to figure out how to be Mark Cuban the same way that Mark Cuban had.
Well, because Cuban still has a Twitter presence and is extremely like popular on the platform, but he doesn't like second guess the team or like, kind of talk about how the pie is made. He used to. He doesn't anymore.
Exactly. He learned.
Yeah.
And I think Cohen's going to have to learn. Like there's a way to be Jerry Jones and Mark Cuban, and there's a way to be Daniel Snyder. Although Daniel Snyder's maybe not the best comp because his issues are different. But
no, there's a way to be the quiet owner, kind of like what John Henry is, where you don't hear from him for a while, then he'll pop back up and then he kind of disappears again. Into the background, which is fine. He lets the baseball people do it perfectly fine. Then you have, the situation, as you said, with like, the Mark Cuban types who are pretty outspoken. They're out front. They're the face of their franchise kind of. And then you have the middle ground. And I think, Cohen kind of needs to find his place in that echelon or kind of spectrum.
Be interesting to see what happens with Ferreira on that front. Best of luck to her. I mean, she deserves a GM job. I'm sure everyone in the organization would agree. Moving forward, Ian, maybe we look back at this point at what we had predicted at the beginning of the season. Does that sound like a good next thing? So, but one of our earlier episodes, Ian and I made some predictions for the coming season, and it'd be interesting to go back through them. So the first thing we did, Ian, was predicting how many wins the Red Sox would have. On this one, you beat me barely. You said 86 wins. I said 84. We were both on the fairly optimistic side of things, I think, with those numbers.
Yeah, compared to, I think, like the majority of the Boston media, I'm pretty sure like 86 might have been the highest number out there.
Entirely possible. So, I mean, look, I think that hot start is basically what fueled it. To me, it felt like a true talent. Like, how many did they wind up with? Probably should have this up.
91 or something.
This should be a thing we should know. People are screaming at
92.
us right now.
I was close.
92 wins this year for the Red Sox. So, I mean, to me, it felt like a true talent 90-win team. What was their PIFAG? Do we know?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
3.14.
What?
I don't know. You just said pi, so I just immediately defaulted to 3.14.
Oh my God, I hate you. Pythagorean record based on runs scored and allowed. Pythagorean win and loss record 88 and 74. That feels right.
Yeah,
like it feels like they
88 to 90 wins around there. Yeah.
So I thought, man, the Mariners Pythag was 76 and 86. They were 14 wins ahead of that.
Good for them. I mean, their run differential was minus 51, and they finished with 90 wins. The Blue Jays were 91 wins with a plus 183 run differential. What was the Blue Jays one? It had to have been like 99. I was going to say, it's got to be close to like 95 plus.
Yep.
Poor Toronto.
Yeah, so we were a bit south on that, but I think we had both said that there was a pretty wide variance.
I think we both said they would be competing for the second wild card, and if they did that, it would be a productive season. So the fact that they were the first wild card, won a couple series, that's pretty good.
I think that sounds right. Yep. Our offensive player of the year for the team. Do you remember who you had?
Devers.
You did. I had JD Martinez.
So I was right.
Well, you were either right. I mean, you had a better prediction than I did. It's either Bogarts or Devers. Right?
Devers was better for the course of the year,
offensively at least.
Yeah. Because Bogarts had that huge stretch. Remember when his hand kind of got messed up?
Yeah,
he had like that couple month stretch where he was pretty bad.
That's true. I mean, if you look at it, so it's Devers hit 279, 352, 538 for a 132 OPS plus. I don't know if you have Fangraphs up for the WRC.
I do not.
Bogarts hit 295, 370, 493 for a 127 OPS plus.
Yeah. So I think Devers was the offensive MVP. I think we can say.
I'm sure you're inclined to say that. Pitching player of the year. I might have you on this one. You said Matt Barnes, which looked great until August. I said Eduardo Rodriguez. The clear answer is Nathan Eovaldi.
Yeah, that's a interesting one because if you would have said like, yeah, at the All-Star break, I was looking great,
You
but
looked terrific. I
I
mean, the
think
clear
that
right answer was Eovaldi. I don't know if I would go Rodriguez over. I mean, it's probably Rodriguez over Barnes.
let's see. I'm looking at WAR.
I mean, ERA plus Rodriguez was 100 and Barnes was 125, but Rodriguez threw three times as many innings,
I think
13
it's
and 8.
probably Erod just because just Barnes by the end of the season was unusable. But yeah, it was
Yeah.
Eovaldi. I mean, he was what wasn't he the most valuable pitcher or in the American League according to Fangraphs WAR? I think.
Was he? That's news to me, if so.
Yeah, 5.6. Yeah,
All
he
right.
was. Garrett Cole was 5.3, was in second, and no one else was above 4.4. Do you know who third was? This is a fun one.
So first was Eovaldi.
Second was Cole. Do you know who third was?
Second was in the league,
No, in the American League. Yeah,
in the American League. Robbie Ray.
Dylan Cease.
Really?
Yeah.
Where was Ray? Fourth?
No, he was sixth. Montas was fourth. Lucas Giolito was fifth, and Robbie Ray was sixth.
Frankie Montas, by the way, sneaky.
We'll talk about him next episode, by the way, because I have him on my trade candidate list. Because
really?
Oakland
bring him home.
Well, Oakland, oof, they just let their manager go for nothing. Like,
yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
That's kind of like if that's
indication.
not a red flag, then I don't know what is.
10th man of the year. I think this might be a draw, Ian. I had Garrett Whitlock. You had Kike Hernandez.
Yeah, those are good guesses. I think we did really well with that one.
That's pick 1A and 1B, right? I mean,
yeah,
almost. I mean, it's almost like you might have almost been wrong in that he was too good
to be the well, we didn't know that. But no, but like coming into the season, we didn't know what he was going to be. Well, you could say the same with Whitlock. He was their best reliever.
Yeah, but he wasn't the closer until the playoffs.
No,
and that was basically because Barnes had fallen off the roster, literally.
Yeah.
We then did most games by, was it a prospect, ranked prospect, or by a minor leaguer? You had Edward Bizardo. I had Jarren Duran.
What was the correct answer?
So here's the thing. If it's literal games, it's Duran with 33. Because there's no hitter who had more.
Yeah, because Wong didn't play that much. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, by pure games played, but it's like, how do you want to count Tanner Houck?
Well, it should have been. Houck was probably the answer. I would have taken. I think
Houck pitched 18 games, but I think Houck had 13 starts.
Houck had more of an impact than Duran.
You know, I would count the 13 starts more than 33 games played as a hitter.
Yeah, I agree. Right? Especially since he didn't start all those games, and he, I think that
Duran, you mean?
Yes, he didn't start all those games. Yeah, I think Houck's the clear answer there, and I think the Bizardo pick was, if he hadn't gotten hurt, would have been interesting, especially given some of the arms they were running through in that midseason, issues.
That's a fair point. But
he just kind of got hurt. And that happens.
They really didn't call up too many arms. Honestly.
Well, they did. They used like John Schreiber. They use.
Well, but I mean, other than the COVID.
Oh, you're saying like they didn't have it was just because they had Phillips Valdez going back and forth all the time.
Well, they had Valdez. I mean, they got rid of Andrews, but they traded for Robles and Davis, who combined pitched 46 games.
I think though that if Bizardo was healthy, he could have established himself as like someone who was a locked-in member of the bullpen, but he just got hurt.
More than the 2 games he got. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking at guys who pitched 4 or fewer games, then the list gets enormous. You get the Brad Peacock, Michael Feliz.
I forgot Brad Peacock made a start. Oh my gosh.
Brad Peacock made a start and finished a game.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Who was the pitcher who gave up was that Valdez who gave up 12? No, it was Marcus Walden who gave up 12 runs or something in a game.
Oh, that just got rocked.
Was that Marcus Walden?
Probably Walden. Where is he? I can't find him. Where is he on this page?
It was someone just ate it and he gave up. I think it was 7 runs and 4 innings no, that might have been Ryan Weber.
Yeah, it was Weber because he
It was
got
Ryan Weber.
DFA'd.
It was Ryan
Yeah,
Weber because he
because
got
in
DFA right after.
5.2 innings, he gave up 11 runs this
Yeah, it
year.
was him. It
Yeah, in
was
the
him.
one game. That's what it was. Yeah. Yeah, 13 hits, 11 runs, 4 home runs. 4 home runs is more than like Garrett Whitlock gave up on the year. It's more than 4 home runs is more. Oh, no, no, sorry. I was looking at intentional walks. 4 home runs was as many as Phillips Valdez gave up on the year, as many as Tanner Houck gave up on the year. Yeah, not so much. Fewer than Josh Taylor gave up in 61 games. Yeah. Anyway, I think we did pretty well. I think we did. I think that's fair to say, Ian. And I can
I
finally,
would say we both passed.
yeah, I can finally delete this from my intro document.
There you go.
But yeah, we did. We're smart. We're smart. SMRT smart. All right, moving along. Are we previewing the offseason? Getting into the offseason? All right.
I think it's
Today
time.
is the first official day of the offseason. Looking ahead, ladies and gents.
Big day coming up on Sunday.
Big day coming up on Sunday, where of course I deleted my stupid list. Here we go.
I have it. If you
I
don't.
got it up too. Wording. Today was the first day of the offseason. Players filed for free agency. 160 major league free agents. In 5 days, November the 7th, it is the start of free agency. Apparently, it's a 4 o'clock deadline on November the 7th for the following, Ian, for players and teams to make decisions on contract options and opt-outs, and the deadline for qualifying offers to be made. And then November the 9th is when players can start to sign with other teams. For the Red Sox, they have the following options. I think that we'll just go through them one by one, Ian, because I think they're almost all pretty cut and dry, in my opinion.
I think there's only one that is going to be interesting.
So team options, the Red Sox hold an option on Martin Perez,
which is getting declined.
No question getting declined. That option is for
6.5 million.
You got him up. Okay. The Red Sox hold a team option on Garrett Richards
for 10 million, which is getting declined.
No question. There's a mutual option, meaning both team and player need to exercise it, for Kyle Schwarber. There is no question that Kyle Schwarber is not going to exercise his half of the option.
Yeah, the Red Sox 100% are going to exercise their half of it, because they would get him at 11.5 million next year, which is a steal.
He is going to make that much more than that on an AAV basis for multiple years.
Correct. So and I should correct myself.
Stays.
Perez was only 6 million, not 6.5.
Okay. Fair. I thought, okay, fair enough. We forgive you. Schwarber definitely, even if he wants to stay, he's not going to stay for 1 year.
And that's one thing I think we should emphasize is just because if he declines this, don't read into it. Like, this was a formality. This was always happening. It means nothing. Right. As for if the Red Sox are interested or if he wants to stay in Boston.
Exactly. And then the Red Sox hold a club option that I've missed. For some reason, I didn't think it was a club option on Christian Vasquez for $7 million,
which is a no-brainer.
To bring him back.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you go.
I was just going to say that I think we saw a great example of why it will be accepted today in the trade that the Cincinnati Reds and Detroit Tigers made, where they traded Tucker Barnhart, who had a $7.5 million club option, for Nick Quintana, who's ironically enough, was the Red Sox 11th round pick a few drafts ago, didn't sign, went to Arizona, turned into, I think, a 2nd round pick. Had a rough year last year, but he's still an interesting prospect. But point was that Tucker Barnhart is basically like a lighter version of Christian Vasquez at the plate. Like, they're similarly good defenders, but Barnhart is not as good a hitter, I don't think. Maybe, I don't know. They're similar. They seem very similar, basically. And Barnhart's option was $7.5 million. So Vasquez would get around that number as a free agent, and there's no reason to move on from him when he's considered one of the leaders of the team. Like, next offseason, different story when he's an outright free agent, but for this one, I think you just pick up the option and lock him in for 1 more year.
I love Christian Vasquez on a 1-year deal because you've got Plawecki under contract for 1 more year as well as an arbitration.
He'll get a nice little raise too.
Yeah, he'll probably get Plawecki made 1.6 this year. Yeah. I don't have the MLB trade rumors projections.
I would guess it's in the 2s, the high 2s, probably. What, 2.6, 2.8?
Anyway, in the meantime, you get another year to see the development of Connor Wong, another year to see the development of Ronaldo Hernandez. heck, even another year to see how like a Cole Cottom develops. I don't know. Just seeing what you have. Maybe they bring back Johnny Pareda. I don't think they will, but they could. Um, okay, yeah, the MLBTR projects Plawecki to get 2 million flat.
Yeah. So yeah, the nice little raise for him, but yeah. And for reference, they projected Franchi would get $1 million, so that's probably why getting him at 825 is a pretty good deal for the Red Sox.
I think 850. Wasn't it 850?
Or 850. Yeah, you're right. Whatever it is, yeah.
So they got him a little below that, in theory. I mean, he's technically not making that all year even. So, anywho, yeah, I love Vasquez on a 1-year deal. The one we were referring to as a potential question mark is JD Martinez having an opt out, where if he does not opt out, he will be with the Red Sox for one more year at 19.35 million. If he does opt out, he is a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
As I said on Twitter today, Ian, and this kind of dovetails into the other half of the November 7th date, you have, I can't imagine being this unsure about a guy on any number of levels in a while. Where is he or is he not going to opt out? If he does opt out, is he or is he not going to receive a qualifying offer?
Mm-hmm.
If he becomes a free agent, like who does he sign with and for how much?
Yeah.
If he sticks around with the Red Sox, do they just move him?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's certainly on the table, especially if they want to bring back Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah, because I don't think you can go in next season with Kyle Schwarber as your everyday first baseman. I just think the defensive concerns are just over 162 game season would just become too much for me, that I wouldn't be comfortable doing that. I don't think. So,
without having the DH to stash him at some of the time. Like I'm comfortable with him as a first base left field DH.
Yeah, that's fine, but not as your everyday first baseman,
Yeah.
the role he was playing in the playoffs. I wouldn't be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the JD decision is interesting. Ken Rosenthal on his podcast yesterday, I guess, said that JD's leaning towards opting out. So take that for what it's worth.
Which makes sense. What we're hearing is that the universal DH is likely this CBA, and that creates 15 new job opportunities for him, which drives up his value because now you have more demand.
He's also a Boris guy, so
yeah. Hey, another year, waiting another year is another year older. Obviously, he couldn't opt out after last year when he just had an abysmal season.
Mm-hmm.
The prior year, he still had 3 years left. There wasn't a whole lot of, incentive to opt out. With 1 year left, it's interesting, and here's the thing too. One thing that I could see folks saying who are listening is, why would he accept the qualifying offer? It's a no-brainer. He's not going to accept the qualifying offer of 1 year, 18.4 million if he's opting out of 1 year, 19.35. I get that reasoning 100%. Yeah. I completely get the reasoning, but I do think there's a chance he sticks around and accepts the qualifying offer. And the reason I think that is that if he accepts the qualifying offer, he hits free agency next offseason and cannot be given the QO.
Exactly. Whereas if he opts in, he can be.
Whereas if he doesn't opt out, he makes $1 million more this year, but maybe he gets the QO next year and it depresses his market.
Well, and also for this offseason, it gives him about a 10-day window because the deadline is the 7th for them to make this decision, or him to make this decision. And then the 17th is when he has to accept or decline the offer. So it gives him about a 10-day window for him and his agent to kind of test the market, talk to teams, see what's out there. So he'll have a pretty good read on what his market is like by the time that deadline comes around. So, you basically cost yourself $1 million this year, but you get 10 days to see what's out there. I think that's worth it, for someone like him.
Especially
but it's also,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, especially if he thinks on the other end that not having the qualifying offer attached to him next year will more than make up for the 1 million he lost this year, plus whatever bargaining opportunity he had to sign a deal this year.
Definitely. And that's why, and the flip side is that's why if you're the Red Sox, I think you have to offer him the qualifying offer. I don't see why you wouldn't, because worst case, you get him back $1 million. If he opts out, worst case, you get him back $1 million cheaper than this year. Like, that's fine. You take that. But if that happens and if he leaves, you get a pick.
And if he stays, you can still trade him. Like,
exactly. So
you can still move him whenever.
I don't think it's even a question that if he opts out, you have to offer him the QO. Like, I don't think that's even a consideration really to not do it.
To me, Ian, the only other consideration for a qualifying offer, I mean, they're not giving a qualifying offer to Travis Shaw, Hansel Robles, Danny Santana, Adam Ottavino, um, Brad Peacock, or Jose Iglesias. The Red Sox, I think, are going to give a qualifying offer to Eduardo Rodriguez. We were talking about this before.
I mean, yeah,
And you
that's a
agree.
no-brainer. I would happily take him on a 1-year deal at $18.4 million. Like
No
Rodriguez,
question.
I understand the numbers don't look great, but if you go by his like FIP adjusted WAR was in the top 10 of all of baseball for pitchers. He had a good season. Like he missed a ton more. I think it was that he had the highest like whiff rate of his career. Walk rate was down. He just got really unlucky for a long stretch of the season. And I would happily take him back next year, either on a 1-year deal or frankly, I'd be open to extending him. If he take like 475, 360, something like either of those, I'd happily extend it for, something like that to be the number 3 starter.
Yeah, and you just made a lot of people angry with that, but I think people, like we talked about before we started recording, I agree with you. A comment you made that he's going to get a lot more than people
Oh,
realize.
yeah. Like anyone who thinks he's going to come back on like the Martin Perez 2-year, $10 million contract, it's crazy. Like, don't look at his ERA when you're thinking about how good he was this year. And teams aren't either. Teams know how good he was this year. He's going to be highly sought after. And those numbers I just said could even be low. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he got like 590 from some team. Like, he's going to get a big contract from someone. It's just a question of how much.
Yeah, I mean,
And
he's not going to
when
get
it
the Garrett
happens,
Cole deal, but
no, but like
he'll
we're
get paid.
talking about for what he is. And
Right.
the question is, is it someone jump quickly on him, or are they going to wait and kind of see how everything plays out with the CBA?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the free agent starting pitchers, Ian, I mean, there's a shortstop and starting pitchers seem relatively deep to me this year. But at the top of the market, you've got Max Scherzer, Robbie Ray, and then you maybe a step down to Robbie Ray, Kevin Gossman, Marcus Stroman, Carlos
Clayton
Rodon,
Kershaw, Clayton Kershaw,
Zach
Justin
Greinke,
Verlander.
Verlander, Kluber, Greinke, Kershaw. And then, I mean, you're still not at that point at guys like Anthony DeSclafani,
John
John
Gray,
Gray, Steven
Kikuchi.
Matz. Although, did Matz re-sign with the Jays, or I saw that he might re-sign, or they want to re-sign him?
I mean,
Eduardo
he was very good
Rodriguez,
in the second half. Oh no,
Alex Wood.
what it was the Blue Jays have considered QOing him.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So like if this is a good example though, if the Blue Jays are considering QOing Steven Matz and the Giants are considering QOing Anthony DeSclafani, the Red Sox QOing Eduardo Rodriguez is like not even like that's a no-brainer. Like he's so much better. He's way better than both those guys, and like he's gonna get the qualifying offer.
John Gray is gonna get a QO.
Yeah,
no question.
Which I feel I'd be worried if I was his agent. That's not ideal to have the QO attached to him. Same thing with like
maybe he
guys
accepts
like
it.
I mean, maybe, yeah, because
Especially with a labor unrest about to come up, I think we're going to see a lot of guys get and a lot of guys accept the qualifying offer.
Well, because the thing is too, in next
that tier,
it makes sense because you're locking yourself in for 18.4 million, where you don't even know what it's going to look like next season.
Well, so and then we were talking about doing this, so let's go ahead, Ian, and see who else might get the QO. So for starting pitchers, I mean, Scherzer can't get it. Robbie Ray, I think, has already. Oh no, he's going to get it. He's going to get and reject a qualifying offer. Gossman and Stroman can't get it.
Going by trade rumor, you just want to look at just pitchers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other ones to consider are Kershaw.
Yeah, you looking? Did they have an article that just talked about guys who might get it? Okay. Yeah. Who do they list?
So they have Kershaw, Robbie Ray, and Carlos Rodon as the locks for pitchers. And I would agree with that. I think all of them will get it.
Mm-hmm.
The likelies they have John Gray, Kikuchi, Eduardo Rodriguez, Noah Syndergaard, and Justin Verlander. I don't know about all of them. Like Kikuchi is interesting because that just came out today that he declined his player option after the Mariners declined his 4-year, $66 million club options that they all had to pick up at once. And the MLB Trade Rumors article talks about how that basically like the Boris Corp, which is his agent, think they can land a solid multi-year deal. So we'll kind of see with him. And there's always obviously the potential for him to return to Japan also.
Yep.
But so that's it. That they're in the likely group. Syndergaard, who knows what's going to happen with him?
Yeah, like that's a wild card.
And then the possible ones they have Anthony DeSclafani and Charlie Morton. Morton, obviously. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with him now because of his injury. And DeSclafani was what I kind of mentioned that, there are some rumors coming out of San Francisco too, that's going to happen. So yeah, I mean, that's after that, that's most of the top guys minus Gossman and Marcus Stroman. So
Mm-hmm.
it's good, and Scherzer. And I mean, I would love like the Red Sox to go out and get Max Scherzer, but I think the Dodgers are just going to overpay to bring him back. I don't
Well, he
know
apparently
if,
wants to is very interested in staying on the West Coast too.
yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Because I think that even if they bring back Eduardo Rodriguez, and we'll talk, I think, more about this on the next episode, but if you look at our projected 2022 rosters, with Eovaldi, Sale, bring back Erod Pavetta, there's still a question what you do in that fifth starter. Do you turn it over to Whitlock, or how do you try to bring someone in? I think both of us have talked about how we would be prefer to bring in 5 legit starters and have those two kind of as like swingman types to use in whichever role you determine in spring training. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they actually go after one of the more expensive guys or kind of sharp at shop in the lower tiers like they did this past offseason when going for free agent pitching.
Right. And in that case, you're looking at, guys like Brett Anderson, Tyler Anderson, Alex Cobb,
Kwang Hun Kim, yeah,
yeah,
Alex Wood, as you said, like,
Jordan Lyles,
yeah,
Willie
uh,
Peralta, Michael
yeah,
Waka,
Danny
Michael
Duffy.
Pineda. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yep. Yep. How many other guys do they have getting qualifying offers? Because typically it's been like 6 to 12 guys get them. It
The
feels like there are way
locks, they
more.
have Correa, Freddie Freeman, those 3 starting pitchers, Corey Seager, Semien, and Trevor Story. And I don't think there's any doubt that they will all get it. They also have, assuming they opt out, Arenado, Castellanos, and JD Martinez. But I don't think Arenado is going to opt out. 6 years, 179 million. I just don't see him getting a better deal than that. Whereas
Fair.
Castellanos is 2 years, 34. He definitely could opt out. And JD could also. So I think both those would get it. So that would be what, 9, I think, 10.
Wait, so you're looking at the article from August 20th?
Yeah. So that would be 10 guys. They're at the bottom.
So
The opt
where
out guys are.
So okay, you've got the locks: Correa, Freeman, Kershaw, Ray, Rodon, Seager, Semien, Story.
Yes. And then at the bottom, they talk about the opt outs would be
Oh,
Castellanos, JD, and
got it.
Arenado. But I don't think Arenado's opting out. So 2 more
Okay.
there. So that would be 10. And then from this next group, you have to figure 2 or 3 of them get it. Like Chris Taylor's going to get it now, right? I would
I
assume.
mean, and that's we'll talk about free agent targets later. I would love Chris Taylor.
I just
I,
think that what you
I
said, or
just
what you said earlier about that, because of the uncertainty, I think there will be more teams will be more liberal handing out the QO because it'll give them a 1-year deal and they'll know next offseason what the financial landscape is for the next X years, however long the CBA is.
Yep.
So I
But
think
yeah,
we're going to see like 10 to 15 probably guys get it this season.
yeah, that sounds right. That sounds right. I mean, there's also, Dave Sclafani isn't even on that group. Charlie Morton. I don't see how Charlie Morton doesn't get a QO.
Well, he's going to miss most of next season. That's how he
Oh, I
does it.
guess that's right. That's right. That's
He
right.
like
Is he going
broke
to miss
his
that
leg
long?
after striking out 4 guys. It's kind of sweet how
Yeah,
he
that's
impressed. It was impressive how much
baller.
he stuck it out after getting injured. But yeah,
We will see, and we will see. So we'll see on the QOs. We'll see on the JD Martinez opt out. I don't know how much else is there. We'll have another episode before the Rule 5 draft, and we'll talk about
yeah. The
Rule
next
5
episode will
protects
be
them.
like it'll be right. We'll have more to talk about with the Rule 5, and then we'll know these decisions, who's got the QO, who doesn't, and we'll do our big free agency preview and all that on the next
Yeah. So, and
episode.
I guess just to give people the calendar. So November 7th is when those decisions need to be made on opt outs, options, and qualifying offers. The GM meetings are like the 11th through or the 8th through the 12th of November or
8th
something
to the 11th.
to the 11th. The deadline to accept qualifying offers or turn them down is November the 17th.
Correct.
November the 19th is the deadline by which players need to be protected from the Rule 5 draft. The
Mm-hmm.
non-tender deadline is December the 1st. December the 2nd is when the CBA expires.
You
So,
have those flipped. December the 1st at 11:59 is the expiration of the current CBA. December
well,
2nd is the deadline to tender them contracts.
really, because I
Yeah,
saw December 1st as the non-tender
that's what
deadline
I
elsewhere.
mean, that's what MLB Trade Rumors
I
has.
believe you. Okay. Yeah, I've seen November 1st as the non-tender deadline, but that could certainly be wrong. The winter meetings are in theory the 5th through the 9th of December with the Rule 5 draft on the last day on the 9th. If there is a lockout or strike, but more likely to be a lockout, I cannot imagine. Well, not I cannot imagine. If there is a lockout, there will not be winter meetings
Correct.
and or a Rule 5 draft that will happen later. Arbitration figures get exchanged on January the 14th. That's a long way off. We'll talk about arbitration guys next episode too. So we'll hit that up then. So what else what else were we going to discuss? Ian, I made the mistake of not
Arizona Fall League
Arizona Fall League
and other winter
updates.
leagues, because like isn't Cutter Crawford's playing, Jorge Rodriguez, things like that.
Yeah, I do not have access to a live box score of Cutter Crawford's start tonight, but checking in on the fall and winter leagues, Jeter Downs homered in 5 straight games. He has kind of come back down to earth, Ian. He's back to hitting 257, 469, 686.
Yeah, the 15 walks, 10 strikeouts is nice. But yeah, as you said, he's kind
of come back down to earth.
He's had a rough little stretch here.
Yep. Tristan Coss is still hitting well, 308, 429, 423. We'd like to see the slogan come up a bit, but
he's fine. I mean,
it is what
he's
it is.
A good hitter.
Cole Cotton, Ian.
Yeah.
Had a 636 OPS heading into his game yesterday.
Yeah.
In which he went 4 for 4 with 2 bombs and a game-winning single in the 10th. He is now, just to show you the small sample size we're talking about here, he is now up to 294, 405, 529.
Well, because part of the problem is he's not playing every day. Like if you look at the number of at-bats, Tristan Casas but Tristan Casas has 62 plate appearances in the for Scottsdale, which is second on the team behind Curtis Mead, who has it's actually not. It's first on the team. No, it's second on the team behind Richie Palacios, who's a 64.
Okay.
Cole Cotton has 39 plate appearances this year. Jeter Downs has 49. Like, yeah, they are not.
We don't have. Hold on. Am I saying that? Correct me on these stats, Ian.
No, the Tristan Casas is 308.
Are you looking at plate appearances? Because it doesn't square with what we have for at bats on our fall winter page.
I'm looking at MLB.com or MLB.com, and it has 52 at bats, and then I added walks where he has 10 walks. It might have hit by pitches, but that's not on here. So I'm just kind of assuming no one's getting hit.
Well, no, I'm just sorry. Okay, because you were saying at bats and didn't square. Anyway, whatever.
No, I said plate appearances.
Oh, you did. Okay, I'm an idiot. Yeah. Don't mind me. Don't mind me.
I said plate appearances.
I'm used to reading your articles, and they always have at bats.
Yeah. I'm trying to do plate appearances more now.
Nice.
On occasion.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But yeah, no. So basically, Koss and Christian Koss, who we'll mention in a second, and Cole Cotton are kind of like playing about half the time. And as you said, one game could change it all. Good game from Cotton. It's interesting. The thing that's interesting to me is he's got 5 walks and like 40 plate appearances or whatever there. And this season, when he was in Worcester, he had like 8 walks the entire season. Or it's not Worcester, excuse me. Sorry, in Portland, he had
You're talking
3
about
walks.
Yeah,
Cotton. He had 3 walks in 80 plus plate appearances. So
after being promoted from
so I don't know and what happened with his walk rate, going back to normal and his strikeout rate, because in Portland it had basically like the strikeout rate ballooned and the walk rate plummeted. So I mean, it's small sample size, but good from him. I'm still not convinced, not sure what he is, but yeah, good little showing. And hopefully we'll have some more Arizona stuff to talk about in the coming weeks as we get some reports from out there.
Looking abroad to the Dominican, and I got that live box for.
Oh, there you go. Well, you don't want to. We shouldn't mention the pitchers because they're all doing terrible.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, you can go to our fall winter page. They're not. I mean, Seabold had a decent start his last start.
Mm-hmm.
I thought.
Yeah, because Winkowski is like not striking anyone out. Brendan Salucci has a whip of almost 3, which is not good. Which is kind of, if you read my preview, I kind of was concerned about this. Connor Seabold has, as you said, is kind of up and down, walking too many guys if he's not giving up that many hits. And yeah, AJ Palady is same thing. He's walking too many guys and he's giving up hits. So, and then Christian Koss, 213, 351, 340 last guy. So yeah, that's kind of the crew.
Best player playing internationally for the Red Sox, Cutter Crawford, after 2 starts. In his first start, Ian, on the 28th, 4 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 2 Ks, no runs. This evening, 5 innings, 5 hits, no runs, 1 walk, 6 Ks against Las Aguilas. So
that's like he's playing in the Dominican, right? I believe.
He is.
that is like good competition. Like you look at some of those teams and they have like legit prospects or even ex MLBers. Like isn't Hanley Ramirez playing in it and stuff
The
like that?
Aguila, yeah, the Aguilas roster isn't quite. I mean, it's got Leody Taveras, Arismendi Alcantara, Eric Filia, who's like a 4A guy.
Was once a Red Sox prospect.
He well for a hot minute,
Mm-hmm.
never actually played in the game.
Nope.
But it's not the best lineup I've seen. I mean, his team's got the key guys aren't there yet. His lineup doesn't look all that great either. Honestly, there's like Michael Martinez,
Gotcha. So
Socrates,
the good guys
Brito.
haven't really shown up yet.
Yeah, although Pujols just showed up.
Didn't he have like a
Which is
home
kinda
run or
crazy.
something, or
He might
something
have.
happened?
I'm not
I can't
sure.
remember.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure. But at any rate, still a nice start. I'll take it. Put it that way. Yeah, I mean the Licey team that he had his first start against features Hanley Ramirez. Who else? Let's see. Yeah, Emilio Bonifacio, Doel Lugo. Yeah. So anyway, some good players down there. So it's pretty decent competition. So a nice start to the fall for Cutter Crawford. And then just checking in on some of the other guys, if I can get back to my stupid fall winter page that I updated today. Yeah, offensively, I mean, Jason Rosario is a bench player for Licey. The relief pitchers have all made a couple of appearances. So Jose Adames has thrown 2 innings. Joan Martinez has pitched 2 innings. Victor Santos is pitching in relief for Escogido, 2 innings. So, who cares about their numbers, honestly, in those. In Venezuela, the Red Sox only have a couple guys. Pedro Castellanos is hitting 250, 250, 500 with 2 home runs and 24 at bats. Odair Mosqueda is pitching as a loogie. He's thrown 2 scoreless innings, probably over 4 games. And then Jorge Rodriguez is pitching in Mexico. He threw an inning and 2/3 again in a loogie role, but he was deactivated today by his team, so he might have just gotten a couple of innings. He might be shut down. He might come back. This is just roster machination that happens over the course of the winter, so we don't really know what to make of it. Oh, and I should add that Phillips Valdez was activated by Cutter Crawford's team, Las Estrellas, in the Dominican. So that is the update there. Ian, time for emails. Again, if you want to reach out to us, it's podcast@soxprospects.com. We want to talk about what y'all want to hear about. So hit us up there, and we've got a bunch. So let's start, Ian, with this email from Alex. He says, "Hi, guys. What would Rafael Devers extension look like to you guys? In my opinion, ideally something like a 12-year, $300 million contract. What are your thoughts?" We could talk about this more fully next week, I think, Ian, but 300 feels light ish. How do you feel?
I mean, if I
about
was the Red Sox,
300?
I would do it. I don't think he would, but
Right. Oh, that's what I'm saying. So that's
yeah.
that's 20. What?
I mean, what did Lindor get? That's kind of like, do you know? I don't remember off the top of my head.
Lindor got 10,341.
I think you'd be in that ballpark for Devers.
I don't know if he gets quite that
300. About
yeah,
that.
not 12,300. If it's 300, it's like more like 10. I think you're talking a
I also, if I was the
30 million
Red Sox,
AAV.
I frankly wouldn't want to go 12 years probably with him. I think 10 is like a good number at most.
His body worries me.
Yeah, especially because he keeps having these weird injuries. So I think like 10.
Fifi wouldn't either.
10,300 sounds about right for where I would offer.
Well, keep in mind too, though, because you're buying out 2 years of arbitration.
Yeah.
So
it's a little
factor
more
that in. So it's a little less for the 2 years of arbitration you're buying out. You're not going to the 30 mil AAV for those 2 years. You're probably doing like 16 and 25, and then the other 8 years are for 25 or for 30,
32 or something, or 33. Yeah.
So do say it's 31 times 8 is 248 plus 25 plus 16, so 289. Could you do 10,289 maybe?
Yeah, I mean, you could. I think between like 10,300, that would just be what, 32 a year. So you just add another, for those last 8 years. So yeah, I think around 10,300, I think would be a point where he would consider, and I think the Red Sox might go that.
Mhm.
I just think that when I look at the guys they have to lock up, for me, Devers is the number one priority. Like if I'm throwing all my chips behind an extension, it's him, not Bogarts for this offseason. I
Yeah,
don't know
and
if
we'll
that's
talk more about why
I don't
that
know if
is
that's
next week.
controversial, but I think Devers is kind of the face and that's of the team, and that's who you want, locked
Mhm.
up, and you need to show that you're willing to spend on him.
That sounds right. That sounds right. Our next question is from Raul. He says, "Hi guys. I hope I'm wrong because he is my favorite player, but I think Xander will get traded this winter because he is an opt out after the 2022 season. And my guess is the Red Sox will offer him something in the 200 million range, and he won't sign right away and enter a negotiation with the Sox. And at the end, why would Bloom risk him walking in free agency after 2022 for nothing? When you can get good prospects for him now and have a rich and deep shortstop free agent pool at your disposal this winter. Thoughts?" Ian, I do not think Xander Bogaerts gets traded. I see the thinking.
Well,
It depends. It depends is
yeah,
the answer.
because he's not going to sign an extension. He's a Scott Boras guy. Like it's not going to happen.
No, he's going to opt out, and he may have every intention of sticking around.
Yeah, he's going to want Lindor money. He's going to
Yeah,
want that
you're not
contract.
signing him for 200 million unless it's for what, like 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
Like,
And the thing that I think the Lindor trade showed, if you traded him, you're not getting like as much as you think you are. You're getting a couple interesting MLB guys, couple prospects in the low minors. Like you're not getting, a top 5 prospect, to add to your farm or anything. So,
no.
I don't know what to do with Bogarts. It's a really complicated situation because if I had my ideal situation would be you move him off shortstop this offseason,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no way that that's going to fly with him because
It's not going to fly with Fifi either, who's
no,
screaming.
well, because going into his walk year, the last thing Scott Boras is going to want is his client playing not shortstop, and
Hurting his
Bogarts,
value.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I don't know what you do because I think the easiest way to improve the team is to move him to second and go out and sign like Carlos Correa or Marcus Semien. Those would be my top 2 targets. But I don't see the Red Sox spending that much money on those guys, and I don't see them moving Bogarts off the position. So it just kind of put in a stalemate. And I just think that after coming off of trading Mookie Betts, the optics of trading Xander Bogarts might be too much for the. Like, I don't think this will factor into Chaim Bloom's thinking, but given what the reaction was to Bats, imagine if they traded Bogarts this offseason. Like
It would be a disaster.
It would an unmitigated disaster PR wise. And I think that while you can't run a baseball team like that, it's something you do have to factor in. And I wouldn't say there's a 0% chance. I'd put maybe 10-15% chance, but I don't see it. I don't think you can do it.
Yeah, here's the thing too. It depends what they think he's going to do, because who is it that said that he has said that he's open to moving off of shortstop down the line? Was that Spear reported? No, someone reported that he
I don't know. All I know is the only thing I've seen of it
might have
recently
been
was
in a June
in
Lee
Alex
article.
Cora's like end of season and Chaim Bloom's media session. They talked about how, that Xander was like a foundational piece at shortstop for the foreseeable future or something. So
We'll
yeah,
see. I
don't
mean,
know.
it's the left side of the infield defense with Devers Bogarts is an issue they have to deal with, because I don't think it's as easy as move Bogarts to third and move Devers to first.
You know what? It's funny though. If you could combine them into one player, it'd be like the best defensive left side of the player ever, because Devers is great at like he has really good range metrics, strong arm, but he just is really bad on like the routine plays. And Bogarts has 0 range, but he makes all of the routine plays more or less. So yeah, it's just kind of like a weird combo to have.
Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds right. Um, but yeah, I think what they do there is going to be possibly the most important. That's going to be more important than anyone they bring in this offseason, is what the plan is there. Our next question is from Rajiv. He says, "Hey guys, with Eduardo Rodriguez hitting free agency, what do you guys think about extending him the qualifying offer? And if not, what contract would you be willing to give him?" I think they give him the qualifying offer and they could still sign him to a long-term deal.
Yeah, I would extend him, and you give him the QO as we talked about earlier, and I would, if he would take 460, 575, anything in that range, 15 million or so a year. I don't think he will. I would love a deal like that. I assume he's going to want closer to 20 million a year. His target's probably 500, something along those lines. But I think, if you can get him for next 3 or 4 years at between 15 and 20 million AAV, I think you have to seriously consider it.
Our next question comes from Will Biggs. He says, "Good afternoon. I hope all is well. Huge fan of the podcast and the site. Looking back at the Red Sox draft history from 2021 to 2018, isn't it surprising that the highest pick spent on a pitching prospect, was Durbin Feltman at 100 and Ryan Zephyr-John at 106? Feltman was drafted as a pure reliever, and Zephyr-John struggled with his control command that led him to spend most of this year in the Florida Complex League. What do you think the Red Sox should try and focus on selecting high-end pitching prospects in the 2022 draft? In 2021, the right decision was getting Meyer, but now they are picking later in the draft as well as having the number 41 pick, so they should focus on pitching. Yes, a pitching prospect is very risky, but if their motto is gathering as much talent as possible, you'd think that pertains to the pitching side as well. Besides Elmer Rodriguez Cruz and potentially Dobbins coming off of Tommy John, each pick is pure reliever. Besides Rodriguez Cruz and potentially Dobbins, who's coming off of Tommy John, each pick is a pure reliever only that they made this year. I love the York, Meyer, and Blaze picks, but just feel like the system always needs arms. In next year's draft, there's a plethora of high upside talent they can choose from." And then he asked a couple other questions about functional things with their website, but we'll leave it to this. Ian, I still think it's best player available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I don't think that they have purposefully not picked starting pitching or pitching, no. I should say. I think it's just how the board has fallen.
Agree. And I also think that they've done a very good job in the international market. Like of the low minors, they have a lot of very interesting arms, and they've really gone for volume with that. They haven't given out a huge bonus to a pitching prospect. But as we kind of saw with the Astros this year, you can find diamonds in the rough in Latin America pitching wise for low bonus amounts. I mean, you've even seen it with the Red Sox with some of the guys they've developed. So, you look at some of the guys they have like John Carlos Reyes, Yuziro Burnett, Nathaniel Cruz, Luis Perales, like they have some very interesting low minors arms. I just think we haven't really heard about them because either they didn't pitch this year for injury reasons, or they just are making the jump stateside.
Yep.
But I do think they have some guys coming. It's just not names that are necessarily on the radar yet, unless you're really looking deep in the system right now. Sure. And I think that the draft is, you only have so many picks to make. And whereas in the international market, it's a lot easier to just go volume. And I kind of think that's what they're doing, is that you take the best player available in the draft, but then you identify those, projectable younger arms in the international market, and you sign a bunch of them and see who clicks. And, maybe only 2 or 3 per year turn out. But if you get 2 or 3 major leaguers from each class from those international guys, that's an insane return. And so I kind of think that, I wonder if that's kind of more the thinking, is that, the opportunity cost that you lose when you draft a pitcher and they don't turn out is a lot higher versus if you spend $150,000 on a guy in Latin America and they don't turn out. So, kind of not using those early picks it lowers your risk profile, and you can get those, those more impact bats. And then you can either go out and get pitching in free agency trades, or you develop them through international. I kind of think that's where they're going right now. But if the board changes next year and the pitching prospects that are available are good, then they'll just take pitchers. Like, I just think, it's a combo of those two things.
And by the way, just kind of as a point of information, Elmer Rodriguez Cruz was picked this year at 105 overall, so he should have been on that list. Keep in mind, in 2020, the Red Sox didn't have a second round pick, so who knows how the draft turns out if they did. It's quite possible, with picks at 17, wherever they would have been in the second round, and 89, or I guess that would have been 90. Maybe they're more likely to take an arm in the third, for example, right? So part of it is just how that's worked out. In 2019, their first round pick got pushed back into the second round because they went over the highest CBT threshold. So again, kind of extenuating circumstances there. Our next email comes from Ben, and he says, "Hi, Chris and Ian. Now that the Red Sox have officially entered their offseason, my thoughts continue to wander to what they will do to address the bullpen, a weakness I feel was exposed in the ALCS. With Whitlock and possibly Houck, not sure I'm sold on Houck, moving into the rotation, that would thin our bullpen even further. I know it's hard to predict who they may target as a free agent or who may be acquired via trade, But I'd like to know from all the performances this year, what pitchers on the farm do you see as potentially helping to bolster slash deepen the 2022 bullpen? Thanks, Ben. Uh, Ian, I really don't see where the help is coming from on the farm. Maybe a Feltman type.
They don't
Um,
they don't have anyone I project for like a late inning role right now in the high minors, but I
no,
think they have some like they have some depth guys. Like I think Cutter Crawford could be a bullpen depth because I think he's a reliever long term. Feltman, Bizardo, Zach Kelly, maybe Jose Adames. Those are two guys, kind of under the radar, but who put up really had some good numbers last year and have some interesting stuff. They're probably going to be in Worcester next year. Moving down to like double A, like if Brian Bayo, they wanted to put him in the bullpen, he would be the closest they have, I think, to like a late inning guy, but you don't do that. You continue to develop him as a starter. But yeah, I mean, they have depth guys, but I think if you're looking for someone to be pitching that, those leverage innings that kind of Hauk and Whitlock pitched in the playoffs, you're going to have to go outside the organization.
there's no question. I think they signed at least one, if not two, late inning arms. I
Like
think
I
that's
would
an area
love
they
like
need to
Kendall
address.
Graveman. I think Kendall Graveman would be perfect. Like someone
He's
like
been
him.
he and he's that's been kind of discussed a number of times as the type of guy Bloom might target, and to me that fit makes perfect sense because they can say, "Look, we're not going to promise you anything, but if you come
And
here, you're
he's
going to have a
someone who's
shot at
shown
closing."
he's shown he can pitch as a closer, as a middle reliever, as a stopper, as a setup guy. Like he could pitch all those roles.
Yeah, so I could see him. Would they sign a Russell Iglesias or a Kenley Jansen? I don't think. I wouldn't say definitely no though.
I think
So
though
we'll
that
see.
one of the most important things for next year is getting Matt Barnes back. If you can get Matt Barnes back to not what he was first half 2021 Barnes, but even like 85 to 90% of that, you have a very good setup guy. And I think getting him back would be just as important as any acquisition they can make.
And to be clear, Matt Barnes is getting good setup guy money. For those who think like, oh, they just signed with this big extension, like the extension wasn't that big.
Like
It,
what,
it
8
was
million
it
a
was
year,
like
7
Blake
million a year?
Trinan money.
No,
Like,
no, it's less than that. Trinan got like 10 million.
did
Wasn't
he?
Barnes extension like 7 million a year or something?
Barnes got extended for 7.25, 7.5, and a team option for 8.
Trinan's contract was 1 year, 10 million in 2019. Oh, then it was 217.5 actually. So he's not even a free agent. Never mind. So you're right. It was about the same, 217.5. It's like 8.5. Yeah, you're right. I was thinking the 10 million the year before.
Good question. We'll see how it plays out. Our next question is from Will. Very simple, Ian. He says, could you guys get into the specifics on what scouts were saying about Marcelo Meyer in the Florida Complex League this summer?
Yeah, I mean, just that he was very good. I mean, it was he showed up and he performed as anticipated. I don't know if you have his numbers up. I'm trying to bring them up. But he good approach, gets on base,
Yeah, I mean his
power.
slash line was 275, 377, 440
Yeah, power,
in
speed,
91 at bats.
more of an instincts than a pure burner. Some questions about the body long term, but mostly think he can stick at shortstop. And yeah, I mean, at the plate is that advertised great swing, good feel. I think I don't know if I think his walk rate was like almost like 16 or 17% in
He
the
walked
GCL. Like,
15 times in what was probably 106-ish plate
yeah, it was like
appearances.
15ish, 14, 15%. So, strikeout rate was very manageable. So yeah, I mean, he looks like a very promising player. And there's a reason, when these offseason prospect rankings come out, he's going to be one of the top 20, 30 prospects in all of baseball.
Yep. Next question comes from John B. He says, hi, guys. As always, thank you for all you guys do on the website and pod. Whenever you guys discuss Ronaldo Hernandez, you mentioned how the arrival of robo-umps could change how the catcher position is coached and scouted. My question, do you guys think the current instant replay system has already impacted the way defense is taught in the minors? For instance, I swear I've seen more successful tag plays at third base where the third baseman positioned himself away from the bag towards second base. Maybe that's just where the ball was thrown, but catching the ball away from the bag does allow the fielder to apply a tag a moment sooner and not worry about the runner doing some fancy swim move to avoid the tag. Before instant replay, it would have been hard for the umps to tell whether a tag to the thigh on a headfirst slide was applied before the runner's hand reached the bag, but nowadays it's all reviewable. Thanks for the email, John. I don't know. What do you think on that, Ian? It's not something I've really noticed.
No, I kind of think that's just how they teach them to do it.
I mean, look, there's a
Like,
lot of stuff in baseball that is coached very differently than it used to be coached.
yeah, because like I think the biggest thing with the catchers is like the knee thing. I hadn't really noticed that until coming into, I guess, last season it kind of started, and then this season became very prominent at the minor league level with the catchers catching on one
One knee
knee.
with one knee down. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really this year's when it
because
really became in
like
vogue.
growing up we were always taught you're exposing your thigh if you do that basically, so that's
Right.
bad. But yeah, no, I haven't really noticed that. I kind of just think that's the way they teach them to do it now is, you want to, you want to cut down the distance. And so if the farther out you are, the easier it is to tag them. I don't think it's necessarily an instant replay thing. I don't think, cause especially because at the minor league level, they don't have instant replay. So it's not like you can, rely on that when you're in low A, and you're not going to teach someone something in low A with the idea that, oh, when you get to the majors, they'll actually be able to review this and overturn these calls. Like,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think it just makes more sense because I mean, I remember being taught like when you're positioning yourself like on the bag to tag the guy, and it's like if you're tagging the guy below you and you're standing over the bag, he's safe. Like, what the hell's the point of that? Right. So I think it's just smarter coaching. I don't think it's an instant replay thing. Our next email comes from Jack in London, Ian. He has a question about our ranking versus nationwide scouts. Recently, he's noticed that we've been less bullish on Red Sox prospects than guys who evaluate the league as a whole. For example, we were skeptical of Dahlbeck being included in any top 100 prospect list when some publications had him around 50 and disagreed with Duran being in the high 20s on the national top 100 lists. This is understandable given that we watch these guys more intensely and get a feel for their strengths and weaknesses better. His question is, who are you more bullish on in the system than holistic nationwide prospect scouts? Aside from the obvious answer of Nick York, who is pathetically low at around number 100 in national rankings. Thanks as always, Jack. First problem, Ian, I think is I don't know what lists Jack is looking at. York is a top 30 prospect on at least one list off the top of my head right
which
now.
one?
I
No, I think
don't
he's right.
know.
I think he's talking about during this season, though. We were like way up on York compared to everyone else, which is like York wasn't even a top 100 guy in BA until like the end of the season.
Right. But yeah, I mean,
I mean, I would say York was one. I mean, we've been higher on Costas, I think, for a while.
well, that's the name that came to mind is we've been beating the drum for Costas should be ranked higher on national lists for over a year now.
Yeah.
I think, Ian.
Yeah,
Sorry, I had to
it's
free
definitely
my cat who was screaming. Sorry about that, everyone.
yeah, I think that he's another good example. Um
I
I
mean, it's just
think
that the thing is, there's only so many top 100 prospects,
Well, right, because I
right?
think there's two ways because there's guys that you think belong in the top 100, and then there's just guys that we're higher on who are like lower in the system compared to, and some of that
Compared
I
to the
think is
top 30 lists. Yeah.
exactly, and I think some of that is just like there are certain guys that we will have because we only have to cover one team, so it's a lot easier for us to focus in and get information on those guys and see those guys. And so, there are certain guys that I think we have more, we'll have more updated information and we'll have gotten more looks on than the national guys because like I think someone like Wilcom and Gonzalez is a good example. Like if you weren't scouting the FCL directly or saw him in Salem, he probably was pretty much off the radar for those sites. Like I know Fangraphs had him way up there after there.
I was going to
But they,
say, yeah,
but they, but
Fangraphs was probably ahead of us on him, frankly.
um, but my point is though that like they you had to have known someone in the FCL to get eyes on him or get down to Salem or I'm trying
Well,
to
you know
look
what
at
the example that comes to mind is, Ian? Jaron Duran pre 2021.
well fair
We
yeah we were pretty on that one
we were
yeah
higher on him. And then
yeah
it's like the pendulum swung too far in the other direction because, and this is an example of what you were just talking about. I don't think the national prospect media has caught up yet on the way
was
Polar Park played for lefties this year.
yes
I don't think they've caught up on just how home run friendly it
well and that's
was.
one of those things that you're not going to get that if you talk to someone who sees him for 2 games on the road or catches
Exactly.
him like you have to have been to Polar Park and see it for yourself to believe
Yep.
it.
And I think the other thing that I'm very surprised we haven't heard more about is the way the changes to the minor league schedule affected guys. And what I'm referring to
Hmm.
are A, week-long series,
Yeah.
and B, only playing games within the divisions. There's less
Yeah.
of a mix of players you are seeing, either opposing pitchers or opposing hitters.
Yeah, so it gets magnified if you would play a team that's absolutely dreadful or a team that's really good, vice versa. Like, yeah.
And we talked about that in season, so I won't belabor the point here, but I'm very surprised at how little that's. I almost want to send in a question to like Ben Badler and Carlos Collazo on Future Projection, because that's the podcast where they would talk about it.
Yeah.
Just be like, guys, what are you hearing from scouts about the way it worked? To us, it has made a big difference, because if you look at like Jaron Duran had like extreme home road splits, and then like on the road, one of his good series was beating up on Syracuse.
And Syracuse was atrocious.
Stunk.
I saw them this year. Their pitching staff was, not good.
So, and it's like in the course of a month, you played 4 teams.
Well, and another example is if you look at Double-A, like if you go to Reading and have a good series, the Reading ballpark is legitimately like 280 feet down the lines. Like it's a bandbox. It plays like Coors Field does. And that's why you see Phillies guys every year routinely have like 43 home runs. Or, I mean, another example on the flip side, like Costas went to New Hampshire. New Hampshire is pretty short in right field and had 5 home runs in, a week or whatever.
He had 5 home runs in 2 days.
And then the series got canceled because of COVID or something. But
the end of it did, yeah.
But
then the next week started late because of COVID.
Like things like that can skew the stats so much. And so you need the contacts there. I do think that one guy, though, looking a little lower down the list, that were like an example of someone like Edinson Paulino, is someone that I think we're probably really the only people who have
that's
way up right now. And that's just like, is what I said is, if we're getting reports on stuff or we're seeing guys like that, just other people, when you're covering 30 orgs, you don't have time to go that deep during the season. In the off season, stuff like that often gets corrected. But in season, it's a lot harder for the national publications to do that. And so that's where kind of we have an advantage in that we only have to focus on one org when we're, searching out information or going to games.
Exactly. All right. Well, that's it for the emails. Again, podcast@soxprospects.com if you want to hit us up. And Ian, I think that'll do that. That'll do it. Not that. I speak English, I swear. That'll do it for this episode. Thank you to all of us for listening. Thank you to all of our supporters on patreon.com/soxprospects. That includes our $5 level Patreon supporters: Kyle C., Tyler Woodrow, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Bill Stanton, Deb Kendall, Evan Kirkwood, Hurricanes 1, Chris Fox, James O'Hara, Nathan Kenyon, Andrew Wallen, David B., Ben Burnett, Al Mendel, Kevin Catrides, Ben NRI, Paul Denyer, Lendl Martin, Cassandra Bukta, James P. McMahon, Stephen Gregory, James Bailey, Andreas Goldstrand, Corey Perrick, Forrest Perkins, Mark Herman, Aaron Meta, Jeff Harwood, Jimmy Mountain, Brian Cowan, Dusty G., Pavel, Jordan Shabbat, Jeffrey Scruggs, Nicholas Staropoli, Bob Introne, Mike Kawano, Chris Bollier, Curtis Waltman, Michael Stewart, Keith Fox, Caleb Farron, John Kane, Andrew K., Tim Ware, and Michael Murphy. Thanks to all of you who follow us on Twitter. You can follow the site at Sox Prospects. Follow Ian at Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. And follow me at SP Chris Hatfield. This podcast is available wherever you listen: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, throw it in whatever podcatcher you use. You can listen to us wherever. Enjoy us however you wish to, whether it's in the car, on the commute, walking your dog, in the shower, whatever. However weird you want to get, go for it. And however you do it, thank you all for listening. We'll be back. What are we thinking schedule-wise for the offseason, Ian? In theory, 1 to 2 weeks per episode?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Well, it's going to depend on what's
I would say like 2 to 3 episodes a month. It'll depend on what's happening.
So our next episode...
It might be next week. It'll probably be the week after.
More likely will be the week of the 15th. We're shooting for 2 more episodes this month. We don't know when they will be. Next week, I just don't know what else is going to happen. So 2 weeks from now, perhaps on the 17th would be a good night to record, because that's when we'll know what's happening with the qualifying offers. They will have been given and either rejected or accepted, and we can really build on that. So keep an eye out, like I said, probably for that week, but follow us on Twitter. Keep an eye on your podcast feed. We'll be back in your eardrum soon. Thank you, everybody.